Okay, show of hands, how many folks have ever heard of a place called Happy Camp, California? All right, I am a native Happy Camp Californian. And something that's really exciting when I walked into this armory, when I was 16 years old, I came here with my sister to a concert. Little did I know, 25 years later, I would be in here with almost the same size audience. Lucky for you, I am not going to sing. Okay? All right, first of all, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to come see us. What I want to do is basically go over a town hall meeting to give you all the latest information that I have on our deployment, and also to give you an opportunity to ask any questions about anything. My intent all along is to make sure that our soldiers and our family members know everything I do on our deployment, so you can help plan your lives, and if there's any questions or concerns or anxieties you have, hopefully I can resolve those and answer questions that you have about them. Okay, next slide. Okay, the first thing, I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint, but rather than read it all to you, I can kind of hit a couple of key notes real quick. These are just the things I'm going to talk about today, and I'll just jump right into them, just so you know. The key thing is, if you look at the last bullet, I will stay here, as well as all of the service providers that I'll introduce at the end, to answer any and all questions that you have. We will not leave until every question has been answered. So please, if you have questions during the brief, I'll stop at a couple points to ask for questions. So write them down or just try and remember them. And if not, if it's a personal or a one-on-one question you'd like to talk to somebody and not in front of everyone else, please see the service providers or myself afterwards. Okay, next slide. Okay, just real quick, the soldiers have seen this before, but I wanted everybody to understand my thought process when we look forward, when we first heard about this deployment. Just a show of hands, how many soldiers have previously deployed once? Okay, a lot of folks. How about twice? 3 times? Cool. Okay, first of all, I want to thank all of you for the sacrifices that you and your families have already made. But when you look across this room, there is a lot of experience there. And those soldiers that have stayed after their first deployment are going to be the future of this organization. So we looked at this deployment. We know it's not our first deployment. It's probably not our second for a lot of soldiers. And it may not be our last. It should be our last, hopefully, for a long period of time. But the key there is we wanted to make sure that we took care of our soldiers so that they stick around to train the future leaders of our organization. Okay, that really goes into the second bullet there, giving our soldiers a reason to stay in the organization. The positive deployment experience, that's up to every single one of us. The attitude we take when we go and how we look at things is going to make it a positive experience for those around us. Okay, also, it's outstanding family support. The key is, if our families are well taken care of, our soldiers can focus on their job and not be distracted, because in some cases they're going to be doing some extremely busy and challenging things. So we want to make sure we provide the service to the families so the soldiers know they're taken care of while we're gone. The last one there is deployment benefits. Obviously, our country has recognized your sacrifices and those of your family, and they've developed some really good benefit programs, and I'm going to talk about those briefly today. And those are some incentives that they do want to acknowledge the duty that you do for your country and make sure that they give you a benefit for doing that. Okay, the next one is focus on soldier development. Just to show of hands, how many soldiers have gone to school in the last 12 months? Okay, great. The key there is when we're in a deployment cycle, we have a lot more additional funding than we would otherwise, and so we've utilized that to get all of our soldiers to school so they meet the requirements for promotion. So when that window of opportunity is there, you've got your education and training so we can promote you. Okay, the last one, throughout our training, we don't know exactly what we're going to get into. I mean, we've got a very good idea of what the mission is right now, but we all know things change. Things change on a daily basis in Iraq, Afghanistan, and throughout the world. And so we tried to make sure that we train our soldiers in the most difficult mission so that no matter what we run into, they'll be ready and up to the task, and they'll perform exceptionally like they have in the past. Okay, next slide. Okay, second page of my notes here. Just we tried to minimize the impact on families, and I put in parentheses where we can. There's some things that we can't control. The deployment dates, the timeline, where we're going, and where we're training. But what we can do is try and manage it, the stuff that we do have control over. One of those is the fact that we're going to Camp Roberts, California, instead of Gowan Field, Idaho. Okay, let me just tell you, last Monday, on the first day we were there, it was 74 degrees in Camp Roberts. On that same day, it was 27 degrees and blowing snow at Gowan Field. Okay, so that was a side benefit. But the biggest benefit when you look at that is we were able to reduce our training time from 40 days to about 28, and in some cases down as low as 22. So that gives you an additional 14 days or 10 to 14 days at home with your family members. The other key there is by going to California, we bring everybody home so they can have a 4-day pass before we go to Georgia. We can't promise, actually, we're not planning on any passes at the end of our training at Fort Stewart, Georgia. And so by doing this, it gives us a time to make sure everybody gets home and has time with their families before we head out to Fort Stewart, Georgia. Okay, the rear detachment. General Wyarty, sir, if you could raise your hand. This is Brigadier General Charles Wyarty, a great officer, done a lot of great things for the Oregon National Guard. He will be the rear detachment commander for the brigade while we're forward. Every armory will remain open with full-time personnel to assist our families and the soldiers that we recruit while we're deployed. Now, one thing I do have to state on that is obviously you know that our state is under certain budget challenges at this time, and there are proposals to close some of the armories due to budget constraints. So if you and your family members could please either call or write your local congressman and tell them how important it is that we maintain our armories while we're deployed, that would be very appreciative at all levels for all of us. The next one is the functional and user-friendly FRG website. The state family coordinator, Michelle Kachowski, will get up here after me, and she's going to show you the website. And the key there was that we wanted to have something that the family members, and not just family members, friends, grandparents, grandchildren, anybody that you know that you want to know or they want to keep up with you, you can get them access to this website. They can get on it at any time and read the latest on what you're doing and where you're at. So we'll touch on that at the end. Last thing, bottom line for me is I got to make sure that every one of the soldiers in these rooms is fully prepared for combat operations. And also, as much as I can, I want to make sure that our families are prepared for the deployment so that it makes it easier on them, once again, like I said before, that our soldiers can focus on their mission. Okay, next slide. Okay, the mission, it hasn't changed a whole lot since we first heard about it. We're still doing what's called a security force mission in Iraq. We're going to mobilize, and that's when we go on Title 10 or federal orders, and that'll be on the 2nd of May, which means under the Secretary of Defense's current policy, 12-month deployment start to finish. So the time that we spend at Fort Stewart, Georgia will count towards that 12 months. All of us should be back here in Oregon on or about the 2nd of May in 2010. Now, all of our orders say 400 days. The reason they state that is if you don't take leave during that year, you're authorized 30 days of leave, which you've earned during the deployment. And so that allows that window for you to take that leave and remain on Title 10 orders. Okay? Mission sets that we're going to be doing, we'll be doing base defense in some locations, primarily in Baghdad. We'll be doing a garrison headquarters, basically like the mayor cell running a base in Iraq. Next thing is our primary mission, convoy security, and that'll be throughout the country. That'll be convoys coming in and leaving in Iraq and those moving within the country of Iraq. Force protection, these are guard towers and gates. A lot of that's going to contractors, but we will provide oversight, and in some cases we will have soldiers manning those stations. And the last one is some specific missions for smaller units. Joint Visitor Bureau, personnel security, as well as running a hotel. Okay. Now the key thing I would put on the bottom, the little asterisk there, the missions are changing. They continue to change every day. If you watch the news lately, you can see that President Obama says by August of 2010 he wants to have it down around 35,000 U.S. forces in Iraq. Currently we're about 150. The next big event is the national elections in December. After that, you'll probably see a significant amount of soldiers, probably up to 100,000 will leave country. And we'll be very busy during that time escorting the personnel and equipment in and around the country and getting them on their way home. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is just a map of Iraq. Don't worry, this is a laser safe pointer. These are the locations that we're going to be. Baghdad here is pretty much the center, and this is where a large portion of the brigade is going to be. For those soldiers at one of the 186, you're going to be primarily down here in Talil. And we'll also have 5 companies from out of the state of Oregon there as well. We're going to have units out here in Al-Assad, about midway between Baghdad and Jordan. And then we're going to have a battalion here in Taji, which is just north of Baghdad. Okay, next slide. Okay, how we're going to be organized at those different locations. If you look at Talil, this is primarily where you're going to see one of the 186. Next slide.